Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen,
And I'm John Johnson.
and you're listening to
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
The podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, both classic and new comics we want to read, and everything else in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
Today, we are getting into the absurd for Shark Week, or Shark Month.
We take Shark Week seriously here. It's the whole month.
We do, and we had to really dig deep because there's not too many comics that deal with sharks. So this would work for Bear Month as well if there was one. But we read Grizzly Shark because our patrons voted on it. Thank you, patrons. You guys are awesome, and they decided that y'all needed to listen to us talk about Grizzly Shark. So we'd like to thank our patrons, Hoku, Otaku Mike, Christian, Matthew, Kyla, Joseph, Kalia, and Isaiah. You guys are awesome. And so if you would like to vote on a second podcast of each month, you can go to patreon.com/Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, and you can vote, which is what our patrons did, and that's why we're doing Grizzly Shark. So did you ever hear of this before our patrons voted on this, John?
No, when we were looking for shark comics, I was like, well, yeah, there's more like, King Shark, Suicide Squad stuff. I'll be honest, I was really hoping the Aquaman Jabberjaw crossover was gonna win.
It was close.
So, but it's okay. That'll be on the next Shark Week poll, or maybe we'll pull that out randomly sometime.
Yeah, we can't pull them out randomly because there's only like 10 shark books, so we got to save it for Shark Week month. For Shark Week month.
But that looks and sounds crazy. It's the title gives it a very much like one of those B or C movies you would see on the shelves at I'm feeling gonna be old for a second here, like at Blockbuster.
Or one of the independent places like Vulcan or
yeah, exactly. Or straight to streaming or whatever. So yeah, like this comic was very like out of left field, and it diving into it felt that way too, but in a good way.
Yeah, so are you familiar with Ryan Otley, the creator of Grizzly Shark?
Yeah, he's the guy who did the art for
Invincible.
Invincible. Yeah, I was gonna say Impossible. Invincible. Yes.
Invincible. Yeah, so he was the not the original artist, but he was the, I guess, artist after issue 10 or something like issue 12 maybe. He took over for the whole rest of the series, which there's like 150 issues, so he did all of those. And so I was very, I'm like, oh, I know his art. It's very, very clean, very precise, very Invincible. This is like a different style. I assume because of the subject matter, he was like, it can be loose, it can be a little bit messy and stuff at times, a little bit less precise, which at first I was like, what? And then I was like, oh, okay, like it's fine. But it took me a little second to get used to it.
I think it fits the tone that it goes for. So
yeah, I just was expecting like pristine Otley, art, which this is not that, but it's not bad. It's just it's different. It's like if you're gonna make a movie and it's a spoof, it's gonna look a lot different than if you were gonna make The Godfather or something. If it's spoofing The Godfather, it can be a little bit more lax on things. So yeah, the Grizzly Shark. From what I understand, it was like a funny idea he came up with another guy that worked at Image, and Robert Kirkman, who wrote The Walking Dead and Invincible, and is also a partner at Image now, was like, do it. And so, so they're like, okay. So they made 3 issues of Grizzly Shark, and it's exactly what it sounds like, except what did you picture, John, before you opened this book? What did you picture Grizzly Shark would be, the actual monster?
Now, I'll admit, even from the cover, like, you really only see like the shark head and going into the fin a little.
Mm-hmm.
And then like, I think I saw like an image of or two of a cover where it looks like, just a fin and some bushes. So I expected, have you seen the Marvel character, Jeff the Land Shark?
Yes. I know of him.
Okay, well, so it's like a shark, but he's got, he's a little cute little baby great white, but he's got little like legs too, 4 legs. So I expected kind of something like that, maybe like a really big shark with legs, but I also expected maybe some hair as it like maybe like starts off kind of shark smooth, goes into hair. So I didn't know what to expect specifically. That's just what I pictured in my head.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like the top half great white, bottom half grizzly bear. And he would be like walking with the bear half, and swiping with paws and then chomping with shark jaws. That is not what this is. It's literally a shark in the woods with fins and everything, flying through the air without issue. So
yeah, like he's swimming through the air.
Right, yeah, he swims through the air and the brush like no big deal. They don't explain it; just go with it. This is a ridiculous concept. You should know that by the name of it. I guess picking it up. So, but it starts off with a father and son camping in the woods. The son's like, I gotta go pee, and the dad's like, bring the gun. There's sharks in these woods. And the kid's like, Dad, you're being paranoid. But when he threw the gun to the kid, it hit the kid on the head, and now he started bleeding. And then I guess they're out here because they're supposed to be protecting some cattle from this shark that's been eating the cattle. So the dad's like, well, you better watch out because, the shark can smell blood from 100 miles away. And then right when he says that, the son gets his legs bit off by the shark. And like the shark just comes out of nowhere and munches his legs. Then the dad shoots the shark in the head and it lets the son go. And then he throws the child or his son into the fire to cauterize the wound, which is his bottom half, like from the belly button up. So he's missing everything inside of him, basically, that would be important for living. And he just cauterizes the wound by throwing him on the fire. And it works. The son lives. He gives him some aspirin. And then this is where you get, like, the real tone of this book is, so, like, you're kind of going along. You're like, okay, this is ridiculous. And then he's like, here's the aspirin, son. And then the son just pours the aspirin in his mouth. He's like, son, what are you doing? Do you have a death wish? Not so many. And then the son looks at him and smiles and says, but Dad, I'm going to be okay. My stomach's over there. And then they look on the ground and there's his stomach. And then they both start laughing. That is the introduction of this comic. John, what'd you think?
Oh yeah, right out the gate. I love that you turn the page and it's just like ridiculousness off. Like it felt very like Looney Tunes Animaniacs, which I think I read some of the notes after. It was kind of an inspiration for him too. He grew up on those. So yeah, it felt like that right out of the way. Like, this is so absurd. Take your mind out away and just like go along with this ridiculous story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like, once I got like, okay, the art is not going to be clean Otley art. It's kind of like fun, just like this book. He's not taking anything too seriously. I enjoyed it. I thought like, okay, this is like a funny beginning, right? So I was on board pretty much at that point. We're only 3 pages in, but it was, it got me already. So then we cut to elsewhere. It says, and we see a truck parked in front of Baskin Robbins. This is also in the South, you should know. And the truck is parked in front of Baskin Robbins, and we see 3 hillbillies inside of the truck, and one of them is like, I want my ice cream. And the guy that's driving the truck is like, hey, like, we'll have to take it out of your pay. I don't got ice cream money. So basically these 3 guys are supposed to go get this shark as well for hurting the cows. So they're like about to go out, but they need to get some guns and ammos and such. And then also apparently get some ice cream. So the guy only has $100 bill. So he gives that to the redneck, and the redneck goes inside the ice cream shop, orders his favorite ice cream flavor called Large Cinnamon Bear Jubilee. And unfortunately, they don't have that in cone size, like, until tomorrow. So he's got to buy a whole, like, I don't know what they call it, a tub of it, I guess.
Yeah, it's bigger than a gallon. I don't know what you call that size at the ice cream store.
Yeah, it's the tub that they put in the freezer to scoop from. So he buys a whole tub of it and then proceeds to start eating it out of that of the tub while they're driving. Of course, it's hot, and it's not free in the freezer anymore, so it's so it melts almost immediately as they're driving away. And then on the way to their hunting grounds, they run into a deer, and all the melted ice cream spills all over all of them, and they're covered with this burning bear like the cinnamon bear flavored liquid. Uh, and yeah, so like then we cut away from them as they're screaming, and people are like, there's a guy that sees them and he thinks the red goo is blood, and he's like, oh my god, because they just got in a car accident, so he thinks they're like totally fucked and like bleeding all over the place. Then we cut back to the dad and son a mile away, and the dad is backpacking the son. Like the son has his arms over the dad's shoulders, and they're just like kind of laughing and chuckling. Like the son says, "Dad, I gotta pee," and then the dad's like, "Wait, how?" And then the son's like, "Ha ha ha ha," because he doesn't have a bladder or a penis anymore. So it's just kind of weird, morbid humor, but funny. I will give it to them. It's pretty funny. If you just kind of turn your brain off and go with it, it was pretty fun. So because of that laughter, the dad's not paying attention to where he's walking. He falls. He cuts his chin. There's fresh blood in the air, and immediately the shark pops out of the bushes and starts chasing him. And the dad just leaves the son there to die. He just runs away as fast as he can, and he just happens to run into these hillbillies that are covered with sticky, cinnamon bear goop. And the shark is chasing the dad as he bursts out of the bushes.
I think you should mention particularly the one hillbilly is like quite a large fellow. Like I would say like
He's like Lenny from Of Mice and Men.
exactly, yeah, very much that yeah Lenny trope character, like quite large, but you know not all there.
Yeah. They're all kind of not there, but he's definitely the most. He's like Sloth in this, pretty much, from the Goonies. But yeah, so they're all covered with the cinnamon bear stuff, and the shark goes to eat the main hillbilly that got the ice cream in the first place. And right as he's about to bite him, his shark tongue touches. Well, first off, do sharks have tongues, John? I don't know. I haven't been watching Shark Week.
Yes, sharks have tongues.
Okay, I didn't know. I've never seen a shark tongue. So he licks the face of this hillbilly on accident, like his tongue touches the hillbilly's face, and immediately that cinnamon bear stuff is like shark repellent, and the shark goes away and doesn't kill any of them. So like, oh my god, we're so lucky. But then we cut away to a bunch of different scenes in the wilderness of this area where people are getting cut. So there's like a climber that cut her finger, and immediately she's like, oh my god, these sharp rocks. And then she gets bit in half. The shark comes out of nowhere. Then like there's a family and a mom and dad eating a dinner at a picnic table. And the mom's like, oh my god, you made me bite my tongue and now I'm bleeding. And then the shark comes and bites all of their heads off except the littlest baby, who's just there crying. Then we get John's favorite panel where there's a woman walking and she's talking to her friend and she's saying that she's bleeding from having her period, and she gets munched by the shark. Classic line. But the way that she dies, it bites pretty much. There's like a panel of her walking, and then you imagine like a shark bites all of her body except like her body disappears in a bloody mess, except her head, which is still kind of talking, and her breasts, which just kind of pop off and move forward, and one of her legs. It's a pretty awesome panel. I think John isolated that for the artwork, but yeah, it's pretty awesome. Is this the one your favorite kill?
I love all of the shark discs, but yeah, that one in particular definitely like I laughed out loud several times, specifically at that. Yeah, like she's doing like a power walk and talking on her phone, and then the panel of just like head and her boobs and her like leg that was stretched out. It's pretty fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the art would do that pretty often. Whenever the shark was killing people, it would leave like little sections of them still kind of doing what they were doing, and it was definitely funny. So that was like a lot of the humor was like timing the kills with what people were saying and stuff. So then of course we cut back to the hillbilly and everybody, and the dad cuts his finger while they're walking through the woods on a thorn, and the hillbilly's like, not to worry, I'm covered with shark repellent. And then it starts raining, and the rain washes off all the cinnamon bear juice, and immediately the shark comes out of nowhere and bites one of the hillbillies' heads off, Then the one that had the bear juice on him, he gets bit in half, and we're left with the dumb one. What's his name? John Bob or something?
John Bob. Yeah.
John Bob. So John Bob is the survivor out of these hillbillies. And the son and the dad are like, or the dad starts running because originally they were going to find the son because the dad's like, I left my son. So the dad's running back to where his son was, but he's just kind of running on accident in that direction. And he stumbles over something. And when he looks down, he sees it's his son. And his son is very angry because his dad left him there to die. So he throws a stick, or what did he throw?
It looks like a rock.
A rock. He throws a rock at his dad's head, making him bleed, and the shark comes out of nowhere and, of course, kills the father. And then John Bob gets very angry at this, and he grabs a knife and he cuts his chest open and he says, "Eat me, fishy." And then the shark and him have a battle to the death. It's a mock time, John, if you're a Star Trek fan. And,
yes.
And or time of mock. I don't know what order it is. I'm not a Star Trek fan. I just know that. But yeah, so it's a fight to the death with his knife against this shark, and he fucking wins. And he like stabs that shark into a bloody pulp. And then the son, who's still alive, even though half of his body is gone, he takes him out of the woods, and now that's how issue 1 ends, with them walking into the sunset, trying to get out of the woods. Then we get to issue 2. We start off with another group of people who are just biking through the woods, I guess, and one of them got a cut knee, and as you can imagine, grizzly shark kills them. Just out of nowhere, it bites them. Like, a lot of this is just people talking, someone gets a cut, shark bites their face or their body off in some creative way. Yeah, it's I mean, it's a joke that continues, but it's so short. Like, this whole series is so short that I feel like it works, you know?
Yeah,
like,
I don't think it ever feels like it gets old. Like, they're still creative and goofy.
Yeah, I feel like the art is creative enough that it pays off almost every time. So then we cut to John Bob and the son, and they're trying to get out of the woods because that shark is around. And so they're hitchhiking, and they just happen to see a car that is that pulls over, and it's a shark scientist and her bush companion, the guy, like her guide or whatever. And they're basically like, immediately they hear, like, once they jump in the car, the scientist is like, "Oh my God, we're looking for sharks and you got attacked by sharks. That's perfect. Like, you got to take us to where you got attacked." And the kid's like, "No, I'm not. We're getting the fuck out of here." And so the scientist is like, "No, either you take us or we're going to kick you out." Actually, it's the guide says that. And there's a part in this that's pretty funny because the kid does not want to get out, the son, and he's like, "No, I'm not getting out. You take us out of the forest." And the guide says, "Come on, punk, step out of the car." And then John Bob says, "Ha ha ha, step," because the son doesn't have any legs. And then the guide says,
because he got no legs.
Yeah, because then the guide says, "Come out and try to kick my ass." And then John Bob says, "Ha ha ha, kick," because he doesn't have any legs. And then and then he says, "Go and ask anybody. Fighting me ain't no easy feat." And then John Bob says, "Ha ha ha ha, feet." And that's it. The son cannot handle any more of that, and he aims his cauterized lower body at the guide's face, and I guess flexes, and he's able to piss out of the cauterized burned area into the guide's face. So there's that. It's pretty crazy, pretty wacky. This is where it got into the like Ren and Stimpy territory, I would say. That makes sense to you, John, or does that sound correct?
Oh yeah, very, very much so. That's pretty perfect because I was saying Animaniacs, but it definitely gets into more.
I mean, Animaniacs never had like piss jokes and stuff, right? So this is like rated R Animaniacs, which is pretty close to Ren and Stimpy. So, yeah. So anyway, that pisses off the son, or that pisses off the guide, and the guide tries to attack the son, but the son just slams the guide's hand in the door, and then he immediately jumps to the front and makes the car go forward, and the guy gets his hand ripped off, and the shark immediately spells blood, and we don't see it, but we are led to believe that the guide is chomped by the shark. I should have known, because we don't actually see his death. We just see him flying through the air and the shark's mouth open and about to eat him, and then he disappears into the bush. So we assume he's dead. As you might have guessed, he's not dead. But this, of course, sends, because like we have a man with no lower half driving the car, but by that I just mean he's like pushing the gas and the brakes randomly, and the car is just kind of turning however it wants. So eventually, they drive off into the woods, and then we get this weird cut. And this was the only part of the comic I was like, what the fuck? So it just cuts to like a journal entry of the son. And it says like, we didn't find Kyle the driver or the shark that day. We did find a child stranded in a picnic location, family destroyed by a feral wood shark. So like, that's the baby whose family was killed. And the baby survived by eating the entrails of his parents. So he's like cannibal Holocaust baby is what it is. Like he's got the crazy eyes, and he has gathered a taste for human meat. And then like basically we find out like the son is kind of in love with the doctor, and she made him new legs. And I think this is all bullshit. Or no, this is not all bullshit. That's right. Like they're kind of like a happy family, but they're still in the woods. I don't know how long this has been. Maybe a couple days. I don't know. Any idea, John, on the time of this?
I assumed, yeah, it was maybe a day or two. The guy seemingly getting to be like, okay, follow them. And the only reason he kind of is like, oh, okay, we are going to go is because she's like, it could be worth millions if they catch one. And so I guess that, it's enough like, oh, well, me having a lower half and going to a hospital isn't as important as money. So yeah, then we get this weird journal entry thing of him being like, I love my new life here. And yeah, I don't know. To me, it seemed like it was like all on the same day or a day or two, maybe.
Right. Yeah. Just like that cartoon logic of time. Right. So, and so they set up traps for the shark, but the shark's not biting after them because they have pigs slaughtered for bait. And I guess the shark has got a taste for human blood ever since it bit the bottom half of the boy. And so like it only wants humans. Then we cut away and we see some other families that, happen to have accidents and they get killed. There's like a father and daughter or son, and the son is playing with a hatchet and chops off the dad's hand on accident. And then when he's getting scolded by the dad gets chomped by the shark. And then there's like an abusive boyfriend who like apparently hit his girlfriend, and she's in the tent and she's crying / bleeding, and there's two sharks that kill them. So we find out that obviously there's sharks killing people, but we saw the shark die from, John Bob killing it. So there's more than one shark. This is like Jaws, 4 or whatever, right? There's just, you can't count how many sharks there are. There's a lot of them. So it's like velociraptors in Jurassic Park. So yeah, we're seeing all the carnage that they all have. Then all of a sudden one of their traps goes off, and so they're like, oh my god, we got to go to the trap. And they find the driver, the guide. He's in the trap, and he's like, no, it's a trap. And they're like, yeah, we know, we set this trap. And he's like, no, the shark set a trap for you. And I'm surprised they didn't do a clever girl joke here, because that very much could have been here. But we see a shark come out and try to attack her, and it looks like she's going to die. But then John Bob grabs her by the tail, and then there's another kind of epic fight. And John Bob like punches the shark through the face, because the guide says, punch him in the nose. They hate that. And apparently that is literally the shark's weak spot, because as John Bob punches the shark, he explodes. So, but then they look around and there's like 20 sharks surrounding them. So it's like, it looks like it's going to be bad. And that's the end of issue 2. Then we get into issue 3.
That's very much like the Jurassic Park thing where they have all the raptors coming through the grass.
The tall grass, yeah.
Yeah. And then it's like Game Over, man. There was a lot of like little like nods to like
yes, there was definitely nods. That's why I thought there would be like a Clever Girl reference.
Yeah. I have to say one of my other favorite kills because it showed that there are multiple sharks basically, and that the one shark, John, it falls off the cliff and it's dying, but it also knocks off a rock that falls on a lady that's just walking and talking about someone leaving her, and she's never been more crushed. And then again, because the deaths in this, she gets crushed,
visual gag.
but by a rock. But then the bottom panel made me laugh out loud so bad. It is her getting squished, and like she was walking a dog, and the dog's still alive, barking on the side, and it's just these 2 shark heads that popped in, and then they're just like lapping up
they're licking the ground where the blood is. They're just like yeah. So that is the end of issue 2. Now issue 3 changes it up a bit, because the trade dress for issue 3 says Grizzly Shark versus Sea Bear.
Yeah, this took me by surprise.
Yeah, I did not expect this either. We have not heard of sea bears before. This was new lore. They just dropped into issue 3. So John, did you think this was going to be like, now that you've seen Grizzly Shark and you know it's just a shark, did you think it was just going to be a grizzly bear in the sea? Or did you think it was going to be like mutated or something?
Yeah, I kind of figured, I was like, maybe it'll have a tail, maybe it won't, but it'll probably just be more of a normal bear at this point.
Yeah. So, at first we just see like normal, like we start off where we see the sharks kind of attacking or about to attack our group of heroes, the driver, the guide, the scientist, the son, the baby, and John Bob. And it looks like they're going to die. But luckily for them, some people cause a car accident, and then that causes a bigger car accident. Of course, all the accidents actually aren't caused by like anything actually going on. It's caused by people reading text messages while they're driving. But because of that, all these bodies fly out of the windows because no one's wearing seatbelts, and all the blood and everything attracts the sharks immediately away from our group of heroes. And so then we just see sharks flying towards, like literally flying towards all these bodies flying in the air that were launched from the car crashes. And then they get munched. And then our people, our group of heroes is walking away, and we get this little sweet moment where the guide is where the scientist says, "Hey, why don't we go back to the city? You should drive." And she hands it to the guide, but he lost his hands in that car accident, or when the son slammed his hands in the door, so he can't drive. And then she gets close to him and holds his face and says, "I'll be your hands. I'll be your hands, Kyle." And then he says, "Well, I gotta pee." And she says, "I don't want to be your hands anymore." And as she's walking away, she gets eaten by a shark. And this was my favorite reference. As everybody's kind of jumping in the car and trying to get away from that shark that's eating her, she looks at them and she says, "Fly, you fools," like Gandalf in Lord of the Rings.
Hell yeah.
Which is pretty damn funny. So then they basically they need to figure out a way to get the sharks over a cliff. They pull a Tremors, basically. They're trying to get the sharks to fly over a cliff after some bait, and then it will fall, even though it doesn't make any sense because the sharks have flown. We've seen them fly. I don't know. Apparently they can't fly if gravity is pushing them straight down. So we see the guide is trying to get into the car, and the son is like, "No, fuck you. I'm not letting you in this car. I hate you." And so he turns the car sharply at a cliff. The guide flies over the cliff. A shark follows him and then splats into the ground as he munches the guide. Just like Tremors, basically. And so, yeah. Then we're just left with Joe Bob, the son, and the baby. And so Joe Bob and the son are like, "Hey, let's use this baby as bait, and we'll kind of do the same thing. We'll attract them towards the cliff." and then the sharks will eat it and fall down, or try to eat it and fall down. But it's not working, and they're like pulling the baby too hard, and it hits his head, and then it's bleeding, but they don't know that, I think, and they go up there to like try to untie him or untangle him, and all of a sudden the shark comes out of nowhere and it bites the branch, and then this is where they get like, I guess, an inspiration for how to deal with these sharks is, so the baby is tied to the branch, and John Bob had the branch in his hand when the shark bit through it. So now John Bob and the son landed on the shark's back. So now they're riding the shark, holding a stick with the baby dangling in front of the shark. So it's kind of like leading the shark. The shark constantly wants to eat the baby, but it can't. And then all of his friends also follow this shark. So all of the sharks are following them now, are following this one shark that is following the baby on a stick, like a carrot on a stick kind of thing. And they lead all the sharks over the edge of a cliff, and unfortunately they fall into water. And like the son and John Bob are like, oh no, they're sharks. Of course they can swim in water, but we learned some lore right here. No, apparently land sharks drown in water. What are your thoughts on this, John?
Yeah, these grizzly sharks are different, and they can't breathe under the water. Yeah, I thought that was, I expected them to turn around and be like, aha. But then then all of these sharks go belly up, and was like, oh shit. And I did like the one that's like standing on the edge of the.
Yeah, there's one that's not stupid. He's like, I'm gonna wait and see, and he did not die.
Motherfuckers, you got to come back up here sometime.
Yeah, exactly. And then while they're waiting in the water, and they're like, come on, come into the water, it's delicious. The shark is not buying it, but then behind them they see bubbles, and all of a sudden there's a giant bear that pops out of the water, which is the sea bear. And then the shark comes out. Now, I thought the bear was just going to eat them, but apparently the bear and the shark have a feud, and they're going to fight. So they immediately start this big-ass fight, and this is a pretty funny fight. They're fighting dirty. I mean, when they're on land, the shark is like flipping with his little fin dirt into the bear's eyes, and the bear's like, rah! And it was fucking hilarious. It was a pretty funny fight. And it looks like, the bear is winning eventually. Like, he throws the shark, and we think he throws the shark towards the water, and we think, oh, the shark's going to land in water, but unfortunately it lands in a boat. And then it turns out there's all this shenanigans on the boat, but eventually the shark drives the boat back to land, and the bear goes after him. And then there's this great moment where the shark and the bear are fighting, and it looks like we don't know who's going to win, but maybe the bear. And the son yells out, "Go, sea bear," which distracts the bear. And then the bear gets his face bitten off by the shark because he distracted the bear. Which I thought that was like my favorite moment of this whole comic. The bear is crying as his face gets bitten in half, like, and he's looking at the sun like, why? Why did you distract me? Like, that's the look he's got on his face, and that made me laugh out loud pretty hard. So now there's just one killer shark, and John Bob and the son and the baby, and that's all that's left. And so, as one last Hail Mary, John Bob launches the baby into the shark's gaping mouth as it's about to bite them, and the shark swallows the baby. But then, as we know, the baby likes to eat flesh, so it grabs the shark's heart and it chomps down on it, and the shark dies before it bites them. And then the last words of this are, "Awesome. When in doubt, throw a baby." That's pretty much the last words of this. So,
oh, except another foot joke, and it's like,
well, yeah, there's another joke. Yeah, there's another foot joke because, you gotta put that in for the son who's got no feet.
He ain't got no feet.
Yep. So yeah, that's Grizzly Shark. What'd you think, John? And what would you give it?
I freaking love this.
I knew you would.
The only time I got myself like thinking deeper was so like all of the things that's happening. I'm just again putting normal things aside and just went along with it. The only thing that got me to be like, wait a minute, was the sharks died when they were in the water, like they suffocated, obviously. But then when the bear was on land, what is the bear breathing? But then they weren't on the land for like a crazy amount of time. I was like, well, maybe he can breathe a little bit. I don't know. And then I was like, you know what? Just read the comic. That was the only time that like my scientific brain kind of started being like, wait a minute.
You can't go into this comic at all with that brain.
Yeah. So, but yeah, otherwise I loved it. I loved all of the deaths every time like someone popped up, and then like they just got more and more ridiculous as it went along. And I could totally see this as like a little mini like cartoon or something.
Yes.
Adapted from this. I absolutely adored it. I loved it. It was really fun. The art was, again, it was a little silly, not polished, but it fits the tone of the comic. And all the little fights were really funny and well done, whether it was between John Bob and the shark, or the shark and like you said, the shark and the bear, where there's like sand. And yeah, the writing is simple. It doesn't need to be anything crazy. It's a bear that's from the water and a shark that's from the land. And well, for the third one, and but otherwise, yeah, sharks that are on land and they can breathe and eat people. So it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I'm gonna give this one a solid 8.
Wow. Your ratings never sound to amaze me, or never stop, or never, what is it?
Cease to amaze
Never
you?
cease to amaze me. Thank you. I had a brain fart. An 8 for this book. Okay, okay, John. I never know what you're gonna throw at me. It could be a 4, it could be a 10. Who the fuck knows? So, yeah, I'm gonna give this book a solid 5. I mean,
What?
it's fun, but you just turn your brain off and read it, and you kind of chuckle, and then you're done. Like, I mean, to me, I need more than that in like a comic to give it like a higher rating than a 5. I don't know.
It's a highbrow comic.
I don't know. I was trying to think of like, we haven't really read too many goofy comics, like silly or like crazy weird comics like this, where there's just like literally turn your brain off. It's time to watch literally the stupidest thing, or read the stupidest thing you could, like this idea: what if a shark was on land and it was a grizzly shark? So like, yeah, I mean, I don't know how I could give it more than a 5. The whole thing of it is just, it's a joke concept. So, but I did think it was a solid 5. Like it was pretty fun. So, yeah, anyway, I gave it a 5. You gave it an 8.
Well, I think that's why we make a good team, because you fall in the path of, like, you want a really good comic read, and yeah, you can enjoy fun stuff like this too, but you're in for that. And I'm a very casual comic reader, so like a little bit of everything.
This is
but
true.
Not everything. Even though you say I like everything.
You like everything. Anyway,
but this one was good. So
I mean, it was fun. I'm not gonna say it's not fun, but like the only other goofy thing I could think of was like, the Yamcha, like how I got transported to Dragon Ball World as Yamcha or whatever. And that kind of holds a special place above this because it is like a Dragon Ball book. So of course I have like a little bit more of affinity for that franchise or whatever. So it was kind of fun. It was more fun than this because of that. But yeah. So anyway, that was Grizzly Shark. It was pretty fun. I definitely did not expect that. I had no idea what to expect just from the cover and what was going on. I knew it was going to be crazy, but it definitely went all the way crazy, which good for it. It should go all the way if it's gonna try. So, with that being said, we got the exclusive coming up the next week. So that will be, if you guys are Patreon members and you want to join that, you get an exclusive podcast every month. And this month we're going to read Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe, which I've never read a Deadpool book, and neither has John. So this should be interesting. I know this is like a newer book from 2015-ish. So that should be interesting. And we'll do that one next weekend. But then the month of August, as usual, we're taking that off. But unlike previous years, we're going to give you guys, our faithful listeners, a little taste of what the Patreon's all about. So we're going to post, instead of doing 2 new episodes, we're going to post 2 Patreon episodes up We're going to do The Crow first, and we're going to do Men in Black second. So you guys will still have content as you would like it, but it will be just older Patreon episodes that you will hear. And then we are going to still do the Patreon exclusive, which will be the new Conan series, Volume 1 by Titan Comics. We're going to do Volume 1 of that. So I'm very excited about that because I am very much enjoying that series. And anything else I missed, John?
Well, it's Matt's birthday month, so he left that out. That's why we're reading Conan, because it's not that I don't enjoy Conan, but he gets to pick the exclusive for us for August. But yeah, we're excited. If you're not a Patreon member yet, patreon.com/Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, you get a taste of that with some exclusives. So I really hope that you guys, if you're not Patreon members, you enjoy those episodes and think about subscribing. And then our Patreon exclusive of Conan, I'm really excited for.
So with that being said, we'll see you guys on the next one.
On the next one.
Bye.